Good evening. Before we start tonight's meeting, we'll start with a prayer.
If you'd like to join me, please bow your head. Lord, we thank you for the start of a new week and with new opportunities. We are grateful to be able to meet together tonight and celebrate the achievements of both students and staff. Please be with us and guide us as we conduct the business of our schools. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, you just came on. All right. Welcome to the September board meeting. We will start tonight's meeting off with some recognition.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Happy September. I asked someone today, can you believe it's already September 9th? Is anyone else shocked by that? No? No. All right, we are going to begin tonight's recognition with individual student growth, one of our 5 guiding principles. We have 2 of our students with us. Connor Baldwin, if you would please come forward, and Hattie Bennett. Congratulations to our young entrepreneurs, Connor Baldwin and Hattie Bennett. They received a grant from the Franklin Chamber of Commerce. Connor is a junior at Franklin Community High School. He created Baldwin Baits out of a passion for fishing. He made custom orders tailored to location and condition. He recently made custom themed baits for the IU and Purdue fishing teams. Congratulations, Connor. Nice. Hattie is a 6th grader at CBIS. Hattie, you brought your fan club, right? and started Hattie Lou Blooms, a cut flower business, just over a year ago. Her bright and cheerful bouquets can be found at a local farmer's market and ordered online. Please join me in congratulating both of our young entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Dr. Warland. So I get to ask you a few questions about your startups. So we'll start with you. Now, the IU ones are going to catch all the fish, right?
I don't know.
Well, give my pencil back. No, just kidding. So talk a little bit about what made you have an interest in starting this business, and moving forward, what do you hope to see out of it?
Yeah, so one day I was fishing and I was just going through baits like nothing, and I was spending $8, $9 on these pack of baits, and I was like, I wonder if I can make these for more cost effective. So it was initially just about doing it for myself, and I kind of fell in love with making them, and I see if people wanted them, and they would give them to my friends, and they'd give me great reviews, like, dude, you should sell these. So then I'm on BaldwinBaits.com, and like she said, we're at a tackle shop in Burgersville now.
Congratulations. And tonight, I know you have a few guests with you. You didn't bring CBIS with you, all of you, but who came with you tonight?
That's my mom in the blue and my dad in the Hawaiian shirt.
Thank you very much. And what do you hope to do once you graduate from Franklin High School?
Well, I mean, I hope Baldwin Baits takes off and I can just go from that. If not, I haven't really gave too much thought about it.
If anybody wants to invest, to start up in Baldwin Baits, see him afterwards, and he'll be glad to take a little bit of your money to do that. I did purchase a packet of his, and they're going to go out to Washington, D.C. to be with my son, who's a big fisherman. So you'll be across state lines and see what we can do to help you there. All right, let's talk about your flower shop, right? How'd you get started with this?
So I started doing lemonade stands in the summers for money, and lemonade would cost a lot of the business, so I tried to find something that we already had to sell, and my mom had planted a ton of flowers in our backyard. So on Mother's Day of last year, we put together some bouquets, and we sold out that day, so we decided to start making bouquets for more people to have.
And what's the best-selling flower in your bunch?
Our sunflowers do really well in our bouquets.
All right. Well, congratulations. And for all the audience to know, they did receive a $500 startup to help with this, so that was great, and they were at the farmers market. So congratulations. And to put a plug in for leadership, for also the chamber, they're starting Launch Johnson County. It's going to help startups and get getting that foot in the door, writing a business plan, and looking at some of those things. So you might consider that as you're looking to get more money in that investing side. So congratulations. We'll get one picture here with our paparazzi.
Kind of high, but strategically placed.
All right. And really, what you came for is the pencil. Dr. Clendening thinks you're sharp. Is that right? Yeah, thank you very much. All right. Congratulations. Yeah, thanks so much. Connor, our attorney said he wants to be like Shark Tank. He's considering donating, but he wants half the profit. What do you think?
It's too
All right.
Congratulations, Connor and Hattie. Now on to collaboration, one of our 5 guiding principles. CBIS, School of Distinction. Team, go ahead and come forward. CBIS was one of 17 schools in the nation named a 2024 School of Distinction by the Association for Middle Level Educators. The AMLE School of Distinction program recognizes exemplary schools while supporting them through a process of strategic vision setting to help foster ongoing growth and success. CBIS completed a rigorous review process that measured the implementation of middle grade best practices and continuous improvement plans. After advancing from the initial application, the school community participated in a series of stakeholder interviews that included staff, students, and families. CBIS will be recognized and will present on their exemplary practices at the AMLE Annual Conference for Middle Level Education this November in Nashville, Tennessee. Please join me in congratulating CBIS.
He always does this to me. I didn't bring anyone but my staff with me tonight. I think that's pretty good people to come. They do all the work. They care about these unique learners that are 10, 11, and 12 years old, and they try to do best practices for those students and their needs. So this is the reason that we got this award, and they're the ones that are working so hard. So thank you, guys.
Picture, we need to squeeze in for the picture. Yeah. Yeah.
Need some more social media.
Science of Reading course completion. I think we've actually been now, is this our 4th meeting maybe, to recognize some of our teachers who've completed the Indiana Learning Labs course in partnership with Marian University and IDOE on the science of reading. So congratulations. The Indiana Department of Education has offered Indiana teachers training in the science of reading, and they're providing tools for teachers needing to teach students how to read using proven and effective strategies. These modules are available via the Indiana Learning Lab. They are voluntary, and they're open to all teachers. And some of our teachers are eligible to earn a stipend for completion. This round, we had 8 teachers. Carissa Delph from Northwood Elementary. Please come forward. Courtney DeCoker from Creekside Elementary. Emily Flack from Webb Elementary. Kristen McDonald from Northwood Elementary. Laura Murphy-Berger from Union. Rebecca McCain from Needham Elementary. Sarah Lynn from Northwood Elementary. And Sarah Runyon from Northwood Elementary. Congratulations, team. Excellent work.
I was nominated to talk, so bear with me while my brain catches up. We took these classes to learn more about the science of reading. A lot of us work in a literacy capacity in our elementary building, so building that knowledge in ourselves so that we can build it in our teachers as well and see the effects in our students.
Very quickly, the IDOE is awarding teachers $1,500 for completing this voluntary course, so all of them have a check inside their little packet.
All right, we'll move on to the rest of the part of the meeting. This is where, if anybody wants to depart, this is a pretty good time to do so, even though the next part is very exciting.
It is, it is.
I don't think so, I'm not sure.
Josh Fuel, he is our middle school ED, but he's working on his admin license, and he probably has to come attend one of these.
Okay.
That's what it is. I recognize.
All right, we'll move on to consent agenda. And first, are there any public comments on, okay?
We do have a couple, Mr. Sprout said that the contract for AdTech did not get in today, so we need to table the AdTech contract until the October board meeting. Also, just two highlights on the personnel reports. One is, we're gonna have a leave of absence, one of our principals, so we're gonna have a retired principal from Plainfield. Mr. Ray Helmuth is gonna come over and join CBIS to help in the school while Mrs. Moran recovers. And she'll be back shortly, but Ray's coming from Plainfield. Before that, he was in Goshen, so I knew him a long time ago. And so we're looking forward to that. And then also we have the new athletic trainer coming in, and on her salary, it's listed as 56, and it should be 58. When we talked about, I talked to Mr. Doty, it's one of those things, so please note that, and that will be corrected when we go through that space. And you're probably gonna look to see that also that entire salary move up, because Tina's monitoring these, but in order to kind of avoid the new salary requirements for overtime, I think it goes to 62, is that about right, coming up in 25, so you're gonna see that change anyway, so we're just starting to make sure we don't avoid that, we avoid overtime, and also pay them for what they're worth in that space, so you'll please note those.
A quick comment about staff performance evaluation plans. There have been no changes to our existing evaluation plans throughout the district on the certified side. However, now that we have school psychs and SLPs in our certified community, those evaluation plans have been added to that submission we will submit to the state of Indiana later this week. Thank you to Jen Scott for her work on those plans with her team.
And lastly, the school improvement plans are on the consent agenda. Dr. Warren and I did go through them and reviewed the goals, required attributes of our improvement plans, and they are all intact and ready to be approved by the board tonight, and then following this, we'll get them to the FCTA president, and we'll submit them by Friday.
Any other questions or comments on consent agenda?
I'll move for approval.
We have a first. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Superintendent reports.
Thank you. First up, we're going to have Mrs. Burke come and talk to us about the Performing Arts Center. It's been a while since we've had a presentation from a person other than our previous director. So I was talking to Courtney after she got hired and said, you know what, it'd be good to come to the board and talk about kind of your vision for what's going to happen. We've already seen 4 contracts. We just approved and the modifications that were required. I've got back and forth on that, and I want to thank Courtney for leading that charge for us. But tonight she's here to talk a little bit about the PAC herself and kind of where she sees us going. So thank you. I think there's a clicker, right?
Oh, yep,
You-
right here.
You can drive your own presentation.
Is it on? Can you hear me? Is it good? Okay, all right, there we go. So I'm Courtney Burke, and I took over for Doug Corliss as PAC director in January of this year. So it's sort of been like drinking from a water hose. I'm just kind of going along with the flow and trying to figure things out. I did change our mission statement just to fit what I feel that I want the direction of the PAC to go in. So our new mission statement is to provide a space for students in the community to gain a lifelong appreciation for the performing arts through education, performance, and community partnership. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of introduce myself since a lot of you don't know me. I actually graduated from FCHS in 2007 in this gym. I was the last graduating class before the new school was built. I was heavily involved in theater and show choir while I was here with Nancy Kaminsky. I graduated from Ball State in 2011. I spent the first year studying theater, and then I ended up with a bachelor's degree in biology, which is totally different, but that's what I did. And then I taught biology at the high school from 2013 to 2021. And then during that time, I also was the drama club director for several years, and I helped assistant direct the Little Mermaid musical as well. I live in Franklin with my husband, Chris, and our 4 kids who are 16, 11, 8, and 5. And that is an old picture, so they're older than that now. But kind of gives you an idea. Okay, so I want to talk about the history of the Performing Arts Center. So this is kind of a compilation of what I know and what I've heard from other people who have been involved in it longer. So basically, we began renting the facility as a way to support the performing arts programs and also the internal events that were happening. We have banquets and awards programs and things like that that happen down there. And then also to cover the cost to maintain the auditorium. But as people started renting the facility, they're like, wow, this is awesome. So then the facility use demand became really high. And then also our performing arts groups grew. And so that kind of conflicted with each other, and it was like, okay, everybody's competing for this space. So at some point, you know, you had to kind of cut back on some of these external events just so that way there was enough space and time for those school groups to have their time in there. This is the data for internal versus external events. So when I first started in the spring, it was pretty close to even. So we had 16 internal events, 15 external. But then this year gives a better picture of kind of the balance. So far we have 24 internal events scheduled and 19 external events scheduled. The external number likely won't change, but the internal number will, because I have a lot of people that come right before they need the auditorium basically and say that they need it for a banquet or something like that. Okay, so where are we headed? So I've got lots of big lofty goals for the Performing Arts Center. We will continue to give internal events priority over external events. That's important. and utilizing the slower seasons to bring in those outside groups so that we can continue to keep our budget growing, but we're not necessarily affecting the use for education purposes. Creating an environment that supports student learning and growth within the performing arts. So I just started drama club again at FCHS. To my knowledge, it has been non-existent for the last couple of years. So in drama club, we do a play, so separate from the musical. That will be at the end of January. And we also, I take the kids to go see plays within Central Indiana. So like I have one scheduled for December to go to Beef and Boards and see A Christmas Story with them. We are talking about offering a theater class tentatively next year, so in the fall, that I would teach. That's something that I never had when I was in school here. I don't recall us having one when I was a teacher here. I don't know if we've ever had one, but it's something that we need because we have a large choir program, a large band program, but no theater program. And then also I have student employees. So I currently have 5, and we couldn't run events without them. They help us with setup, they help us with tear down, they run tech, they do ticketing, they do concessions, they see people, I mean, they do all kinds of different stuff, and it's a great opportunity for students to have a job where they can feel safe, and also it's flexible with their work schedule, or with their school schedule, their sports, other activities. So I'm looking forward to growing that side of things over the next year as well. Another goal of mine is to build a solid theater program from the ground up within Franklin schools. So we have drama club sponsors at each of the schools, but there's not really any cohesion. So like basically getting with them and collaborating and trying to build a program K through 12, just like band and choir have, just like sports have. We're missing that. So that's sort of one of my big goals. Getting the community more involved, okay? So sponsorship opportunities for businesses and individuals, maybe even volunteer opportunities. Having a lineup of those community events, like I had you guys approve all those contracts, I apologize for that. And also pushing out there the lineup of all of our events at the beginning of the year, because I think a lot of people don't know when things are going on. Like I had a lady call me today and want to know, you know, the whole thing, and I'm like, hey, just wait, I'm getting it out there, I promise. So yeah, just getting the community more involved and just offering that up to our students, our staff, and just everybody, like a local place to be able to experience theater, concerts, all that good stuff. And then I also would like to bring in or produce within the drama club educational programs for the students. So, for example, drama club this year is going to perform Willy Wonka at the end of January. So I reached out to the 3rd and 4th grade classrooms and asked them that if drama club purchased books for each classroom, if they would read those books to their students and then come to the high school to watch a free preview of the show a couple days before we open. And they were like, yes, let's do that, that's awesome. So I just delivered like half of the books today. But it doesn't even have to just be us performing it. You know, bringing in outside groups. Maybe it's a play about something historical or whatever. Anything that we can align with things that the students are already learning, like seems like a win-win. So that's just kind of my big lofty goals and what I want to do with the Performing Arts Center. And I just thank you for your time. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah, follow that.
What's that?
Follow that now.
Yeah, she's good. Mine, not as good as hers. We'll set the bar a little lower. No, I wanted to be here with you guys today just to give you an update on on the transportation issues we've been having and kind of where we are, and give you some what's happening in the transportation department. Next month, Drew Murray, our transportation director, will be here to give you an update again on transportation and to improve routing for our buses per our Church Churchill and interim policies. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background before he gets here next month so you kind of see where we are and what we've been dealing with. One of the first things I want to talk to you about was our gen ed routing. We have 135 general education routes between the AM and PM. That would be all of our routes included. These routes are covered by 41 full-time drivers. At this point in time, we're about 3.5 drivers short. How do we get a half driver? It's a PM one. It's not half a person. It's a half a route. We got to get there in the afternoon for full coverage. So we're still down a little bit there. We do have 4 drivers going through certification right now that should be ready to drive in the next 4 weeks if all goes well. So that would get us to fully staffed. We'll talk a little more about that in a minute because there are still issues even when we are fully staffed. When it comes to our special needs routes, we have 18 local special needs routes, so 9 in the morning, 9 in the afternoon. Those are covered by 9 special needs bus drivers. We have 4 RISE routes. RISE is a place that we work with that we send children to that have some specialized needs in both the AM and PM, and those are covered by 2 non-CDL licensed drivers. We have 1 Indiana School for the Deaf route that is run twice a week. We have 15 midday preschool routes, 3 midday alternative school routes. That's for the middle school and high school alternative programs only. And then we have 2 McKinney-Vento routes that are covered by 2 non-CDL drivers as well. At this point in time, all of our special needs routes are currently covered. So it's our gen ed routes that we're struggling to get covered right now. But all of our special needs routes are covered at this point in time. When we talked about when we do get to the point where we are fully covered, when we do get the other 4 drivers in, the issue that comes in and kind of where we have issues now is transportation does not have any daily sub or reserve drivers. So if someone calls in sick, takes a day off, has an appointment, and we have coverage that's needed, the on-staff drivers are filling those needs in. This is extra coverage. This extra coverage is the main culprit that we see for delayed buses in our transportation services. So even when we get fully staffed, if someone calls in sick, has an appointment, has got to go take care of something, we've got to figure out a way to cover that with our already existing drivers that we have without those reserve drivers. And then the last thing I had for you, we've been working on the Stop Finder app. At this point in time, it appears that it's working very well. We're still going through and working with any parents or guardians that call in to fix, adjust, anything that goes on there. If they change an email or somehow they're not on it, we're trying to walk them through those steps to work with their family members to get them on there so they can see where their child is. And we're still trying to figure out all that app does, and Mr. Sprout and Mrs. Betts have been doing a good job helping out with that as well. So thank you. I will try to answer any questions if you have them, but this is mostly from our director, and I may have to write those down and get back to you on them if I need to.
And I don't know this answer, like, this may be a silly question, but is there a contracting company, like we contract mowing sometimes or whatever, is there a contract company that can help?
There are some. We've looked at one in specific called Hop Skip Drive. It's typically used for those one-off type of things, or it's basically your non-daily routes. Those are a little tougher. I think if someone wanted to make a lot of money and brand that to school corporations, they probably could. I was just at an operations director's meeting on Friday, and we're all still kind of living this. There's a few that I'm starting to hear are starting to get full from my colleagues that work in other districts. I know Dr. Clendenning's had this conversation with his superintendent colleagues as well. We're trying to figure out what it is that attracts drivers. It seems to be pay and benefits, but even when people up their pay and increase benefits, you'll find a place that doesn't give very good pay or have all benefits and they're fully staffed. And it just, some of it doesn't make sense. And I wish there was a great answer or a silver bullet that we could all use to get there. But it's kind of, I think, steadily getting a little bit better, but it's still going to take a little time. And those things we're hearing from people are still, when we get denied, it's benefits and pay is what we usually hear.
Benji, we had a few buses that were late to start the year, and also I know we've have a few that are continuing to be late. What are some remedies that you guys are doing proactively to kind of
make sure that our kids are getting to and from school?
Yeah, we've done a couple things in working with our director and sitting down and talking through some of these things, trying to make sure kids aren't continually late and continually missing. We've brought a couple drivers in who have volunteered when asked. We come and say, hey, do you mind running one more? We may run this one a little early. We've worked with Northwood to have a little bit of coverage if we need to run a little bit earlier on some routes, and some other schools to try and get kids there and then get back out and get to another route with a driver. So that driver, some of our drivers, if they do something like that, may run 3 routes in a day. 2 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, or 2 in the afternoon and 1 in the morning. We're trying to go back and as our director gets a little more acclimated to his job, we're going to go back. We're going to look at the routing. Are we being as efficient as we can be with where our kids are and how many kids are on buses, and trying to just get as efficient as we can to get kids to and from school under the guidelines that we have, and trying to keep them on the bus around that hour time. In some of our areas, our district's very large when you look at square mileage. So trying to stick to that hour, and we may not be able to put a full 60 kids on a bus or whatever that top number is for a bus in those areas, but it's because we are traveling long distances to get all of them. But we're looking at anything. If anyone has any more ideas, I will give Drew his credit. He went back, I think, 6 years into our applications over the summer and just cold called people that we hadn't heard back from on drivers. Some came in and interviewed, some said yes, some said no, but he did that throughout the summer, and I think trying to just get acclimated and do everything we can to get our kids to school on time and get their education.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. And if you have questions, concerns, call, email anytime.
Thank you.
Mr. Betts, I think you did a good job. Good job. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about I-READ 3. So for transportation to I-READ 3, it just continues to get more riveting, right? That's what you're thinking? I want to start with just thanking our elementary principals. I think all 5 of them are here. Can you just stand for a minute? Senate Enrolled Act 1 created a lot of change for our elementary principals. So let's give them a round of applause and just say thank you. So thank you. Part of Senate Enrolled Act 1 are some of the changes I'm going to talk a little bit about with regards to I-READ 3, 3rd grade retention. There will be a letter going home to kindergarten families here in the next couple of weeks. That's included in that Senate Enrolled Act. But some things for teachers that we're trying to navigate to with their training and endorsement. So first of all, let's talk about what I-READ 3 is. I-READ comes from Indiana Reading Evaluation and Determination Assessment. Okay, that's where I-READ, that acronym comes from. It measures foundational reading skills, and really for the most part, this test hasn't changed a whole lot since we've had it. They changed the timing of it last year. It used to be timed, it's now untimed, but it's been a fairly consistent assessment for us, which is actually an advantage. It's administered now within Senate Enrolled Act 1 to all 2nd and 3rd grade students across the state of Indiana. Both grades will now, moving forward, take that assessment. It's administered in the spring. We have a retake in the summer or late May, which is when we've traditionally done it. That might adjust this year based upon summer school changes. 2nd grade, it's a formative assessment. It tells us if a student is at risk. Are they nearing proficiency or are they at proficiency? If you are at proficiency in 2nd grade, you've passed. You do not have to take the assessment as a 3rd grader. Then in 3rd grade, it is a summative assessment. There are high stakes involved with that summative assessment for our 3rd grade families. And again, SEA 1, Senate Enrolled Act 1, requires our 3rd grade students to be retained if they do not pass. There are 5 reasons why we can issue a good cause exemption, and those will be communicated to families so that they understand what those are here in the coming weeks. Just so everyone knows and remembers, the state of Indiana has a goal of a 95% average across the state of Indiana by 2027. In Franklin, here are the goals we've been using. 85, I'm actually hoping we'll hit 86 this year, if not better, right? Elementary principals, what do you think? Average, district average? Okay, they're all nodding. So for 2025, then 90% in 26, and the state average of 95% in 2027. The work we've been doing with the cadre, the hope is that as our kindergartners continue to move through, our first graders move through, we've been highly intentional and strategic that we will start to see that percentage increase by a greater amount. Here are the numbers for Franklin schools. State average is 82.5%. The state average did go up a little bit. Our district average increased by 1.1%, 83.8%. I'm actually pleased with that. You'll see then the 5 schools. Northwood Elementary, Union Elementary had 100% passing rate this past year. They were actually recognized and celebrated this past Friday at the state gala. So congratulations to the Union Ramblers. We are celebrating gold medal mindsets and gold medal moments this year. So some of our gold medal moments from iRead 3. Our average is better than the state average. Anytime that happens, we celebrate. Union Elementary, once again. We experienced growth in 3 of our 5 elementaries. We expect to see that continue. And our district average is better than it was last year. So we need to continue to see that average grow. And we're all on that same page. I see smiles and head nods, so we're all in this together. Some of our work to do. We are in year 2 of a 2-year partnership with the Literacy Cadre, Marian University, IDOE. It has been a very productive and powerful partnership. Some of our literacy coaches were actually with us earlier in the evening. We have 5 of them that are shared. We share their funding with IDOE and the support from the Lilly Endowment. We are thankful for that partnership. Part of our work, and I'm looking again at the team this year, is strategizing how we continue to sustain that good work. We've invested in a lot of professional development, in new tools, in new ways of thinking about how we educate students, and that needs to continue. RTI means response to intervention. Northwood Elementary attended a conference to look at how we're providing interventions to that second dose of learning for students that are struggling in our gen ed classrooms, and that third dose of learning, that intensive dose of learning. Webb Elementary will be attending some professional development later this month. So we continue to think about, the cadres really helped us with this as well, how we teach reading, and how we think about literacy and focus on foundational reading skills. Schedule adjustments for OG. OG is Orton Gillingham. I think our board is all aware. I know our admin is aware. 2 years ago, 3 years ago maybe, team, we asked our K-1-2 teachers to all get trained in Orton Gillingham. We're actually ahead of the curve on that. For foundational reading skills, that instructional, intentional, systematic piece. We now have that worked into our schedules in a very scoped and sequenced manner for the first time really this year. So we'll see what those results are at the end of the year. As you all know, we are participating in the iLearn Checkpoints pilot, so we will see how we're benchmarking on our 3rd grade standards, how that may help us predict iRead 3 performance. And we've made improvements to Title I programming, again, as we think about support, interventions, tiers of learning for our students. And some of the tools and strategies we've learned from the cadre have really helped us make better informed decisions about how we structure and group students for those interventions. How we think about differentiation in our classroom, how we think about small groups in our classroom, and frankly, how we think about staffing and where we need our staff. So look for good news, right? Good news, thumbs up, head nods. So we're all in, and we're trying to stay really excited and really focused on that gold medal win. I'm happy to entertain questions if you have them.
Brooke, on these percentages, I assume this is 3rd grade.
This is just, if you're a 2nd grader and you passed, you're wrapped into that 3rd grade percentage, but this does not include our passing rates from 2nd grade who are now 3rd grade.
Okay, so it does not include,
Correct.
okay. Because I'm curious with that, because I can only imagine the pressure if you don't pass in second grade. That's a lot of pressure. in third
For
grade
the
on families
students?
and students.
We do tell families in the letter, and actually the letter that's coming out from the state as a result of Senate Enrolled Act 1, that is now required to go to all of kindergarten families before October 1. It outlines the expectations now from that act and the supports that we offer, opportunities for families to get engaged. I think in an attempt to say we're going to partner together, but it's okay if it doesn't happen in second grade. It's a good reminder to remember it's still a third grade test, still a third grade assessment. Yeah, I can get you our second grade numbers
That'd
if
be
you want to see.
helpful. I'll be looking for that letter. I'm already nervous.
Also, just so everyone remembers, summer school funding changed really this last summer school session, this past year. The state is taking all of those summer school dollars and concentrating them into second and third grade. So any student who does not pass third grade IREAD and any student at risk after second grade IREAD will be invited to summer school. Now, parents, of course, can decide. We'll have reading plans developed because of Senate Enrolled Act 1 for any student who doesn't participate in summer school, but they will have that opportunity to come for another dose of instruction and intervention before they retest. So summer school, the way we do summer school, or we've done it historically, has changed. We won't have the high school options, frankly, that we've had in the past for credit recovery, for extension, summer PE, or if you need to take econ in order to open up space in your schedule. So changes coming for summer school as well as a result of this same act of the legislator.
Last item is the Democracy Quest pilot at CBIS. Oh, this is why you guys stuck around.
If you remember last spring, I came to you guys and asked you permission to partner with IU and the Center on Representative Government to come to Custer Baker. Whitney McCarthy is the teacher that really gave us that connection. She formed that bond with the Center on Representative Government. And Dr. Elizabeth Osborne is actually with us in the audience tonight, who's heading up this program. So last year in May, Custer Baker was hard at work with Democracy Quest, and we were eager to pilot content with the students and the teachers at Custer Baker.
Hello, Sharks. Thank you. Initially, there was a hard date in mind, but we've had to shift that a little bit. IU's president, Dr. Witten, would like to visit Johnson County in her 90-county tour of Indiana. And so she's planning to visit Johnson County on Friday, October 4th. So she's expressed interest in coming to Custer Baker to see Democracy Quest in action, which is awesome, and we're so excited for that. We're hoping that she would be able to do so. So that's one of the things that we would like to be prepared for this October date.
So the module that we would like to show her is Philadelphia 1787. And again, in that virtual world, students will interact with various people, asking initially about their lives and professions or their views on the Constitution as it was written. A second set of scenarios takes place after the ratification of the Constitution. These are the things that we need to do and the things that we need approval for. Whitney McCarthy is the teacher that's connected to CORG and this project, and we're looking for a couple more teachers to take part in the professional development cohort. Whitney is planning to reach out to some of these teachers in our building to see if they're interested as soon as we have your approval.
So here are the things that we're asking for approval for. 1, to identify 2 to 3 teachers, in addition to myself, to be in a professional development cohort who will teach the Democracy Quest project and be compensated. Teachers will complete a pre-survey and attend a professional development session, ideally in early September. Teachers pass along research study consent, which will be a digital link to families through ParentsWare or preferred communication methods. We need to start this a month ahead of time for the research parameters. Classroom piloting of virtual reality and accompanying materials. Student pre- and post surveys administered, and some student interviews with their student researchers.
in early October or after. And then further down the road, in winter of 2025, a second professional development for participating teachers. And then in summer 2025, again, free professional development for any teacher in our district, county, etc.
So some other important pieces of information. Participating teachers will be compensated $250 with your approval for the pre-project survey and attending that first round of professional development. Each participating teacher will receive a VR headset, virtual reality headset, to keep in their classroom for their own use. Teachers will additionally be compensated up to $750 as they complete other tasks outside of school hours, including rubrics, submitting sample student work, participating in an interview, attending the second professional development, and then presenting at the third PD or at a conference. So with that, that's what we're seeking approval for today.
Do you have any questions?
How is this different than the approval that we received a few months ago?
So we were just asking to test the equipment a few months ago. Now we're asking to actually test 1787 Philadelphia curriculum, which is aligned with the standards that we already have, 5th grade social studies standards and our 6th grade civic standards.
And on the survey, what exactly are you going to be asking for parent approval?
And I might defer to Dr. Osborne at this time. She was coming for civic input tonight, just to
Okay.
visit with us. I'm not exactly sure what they are surveying.
Okay.
Thank you for asking that. And maybe you could, I'm glad you're here.
Hi, thank you for even considering this project. I work for the Center on Representative Government, which was founded by Lee Hamilton in 1999, who many of you might remember him as one of our stalwart Indiana congressmen. And the goal of the center is essentially just to create engaged and informed citizens. So we are kind of a civics mission-based organization, and my work is almost all in K through 12 civics, particularly in 5th through 12th grade. So what we're looking at in this survey, and by the way, I will footnote it by telling you that everything has been Institutional Review Board, IRB, approved by both Indiana University and the Department of Defense, because the funding from this project comes from the Department of Defense. And if you're scratching your head and wondering why, it's because the Department of Defense really sees civics as a national defense imperative. They believe that the skills of civics, consensus building, working with your peers, being a participating and informed member of your community are the things that we need for our 21st century workforce, whether you join the military, you work in a school or serve on a school board, or serve in Congress, or become an astronaut like many Hoosier students of the past have become. So that's why they're funding these civics projects. In the grant round that we received funding, see, you're getting way more than you asked for, there were 12 STEM projects that were funded in one civics group of projects because they feel that this is so important to teach these skills. So in our survey, and so their Department of Defense IRB board has approved it as well, and Cheryl and Whitney both have copies of those documents if you'd like to see those, and they also have copies of all the surveys. That'll be the consent form going to parents, essentially describes what they just told you, and the questions on the survey are, very basic, like, do you, work in groups, do you have peers, we're trying to, the things besides content building, which of course is, to you guys, one of the most important things to make sure we're hitting standards and not taking away from instructional time, are those skills of empathy. Like, do you participate in any volunteer associations, things like that? Do you understand what's happened in the past? Do you try to put yourself in other people's shoes? So by putting them in these scenarios with 5 different people in the past, one of them being a youth, so they'll try to learn like what it was like to be a youth, someone their age living in Philadelphia in 1787. And I hope that all of them will be shocked when they talk to this young apprentice in a print shop who is 12 years old and tells them that he's indentured for 7 years and that he has no vacations, no holidays, doesn't get to see his family, and that his school essentially is to work in this print shop and learn that trade. And then also they'll meet a young woman who has been indentured, and I was just sharing this with Whitney last week. She has been indentured for 9 years by her mother to learn the skills of being a housewife. And they will actually read the primary source. They will read the indenture signed by the girl and her mom with an X because they couldn't write. And one of the things we'll ask them to think about is, what choices must her family have been faced to make this decision to indenture their child for 9 years? And so that they can kind of put themselves in that empathetic position. And then we'll ask them to think about, well, what are your choices? What is the school and education and career expectations for you? So those are the things that we're hitting for. One, the content, to build the content, but also this empathy, and the idea of the research shows that, if we can develop this historical empathy, hopefully, and one of our research questions is does this transfer to empathy for themselves, for their community members, for their classmates? And then hopefully they will use those empathetic skills as they go forward, and that they're willing to listen to others and try to understand other people's positions and to work together to build consensus and to collaboratively make decisions. And these are the future of our country, the kids who are going to be serving on school boards, in Congress, in the state legislatures, and we want to build those civic skills. So I'm sure that's more than you were anticipating, but those are the overall goals of the project. It's a 3-year project, so this is year 1, and eventually it'll go around the country and be piloted in other schools, but we took the opportunity to try to highlight, our Hoosier schools in this first year.
And can you remind us of the timeline again?
So the first, which really kind of threw a wrench in our things, is this visit by President Whitten, if you give approval for her to come and visit the school on October 4th, thank you, October 4th. Essentially on that day, we'll have a class that doesn't participate in the research because it would, I don't know what the correct word is, but corrupt the research information if they got to try them out in advance and then went and later did the survey. So they will put the goggles on and be actually in Philadelphia and get to do all the fun stuff, but we won't include them in the survey and the post-survey. Then we will have a professional development that the center has funding from the Department of Defense that will pay for the teachers, the costs to the school, like to pay for a substitute teacher, if they need to pay the travel costs for the teachers, and we're hoping to have them come to Noblesville because Noblesville is the other school and will be a part of the cohort, and that will be November 1st, and then our projected goal of doing the actual 2 days in the class, because that's probably the other question you're wondering is how long are we committing to. It's really only 2 days, the 2 days the week of Thanksgiving break, so Monday and Tuesday. That will come in on Monday. They will just do kind of the VR experience. They'll go into Philadelphia, they'll talk to the apprentice, and while they're talking to the apprentice, they will actually get to operate a printing press and help print items, so that I always say we're sneaking in the content, like why they think they're having fun operating the printing press. We're really going to be telling them about what the life for this young man is. And then the second day we'll come back, and that's the day that they will have primary sources that reflect the experience of the young apprentice, and they'll read the primary source from the young man and the young woman, and they'll do an inquiry-based lesson plan based on their experience in the VR and those primary sources. So it'll be 2 days in November. So that's essentially the class time.
Okay, thank you.
And if you would like copies of those lesson plans and/or the surveys or anything, I believe I can get those to you as soon as possible.
I was going to say, we'll also link the primary sources into the civics curriculum map.
Because I think one of the logistics things, that's why I asked the timeline, is logistics for all of us. In order for us to get approval, they're going to need to give you approval in October board meeting. And so I think Dr. Winton can come based on your past approval using the VR. And then us moving forward, because we have to give the public a chance to comment on this to make sure that how they feel about it. So we meet again October the 19th, and at that point in time, we would get approval for that. Okay? And then you'd still meet your timeline for the other things.
And obviously, the parents have the ability to give consent, and none of the students will know, like if their parent didn't give consent, everybody will take the survey and it'll be thrown out. So, it'll be compared
Okay.
to the class list, so no child, and they would still be able to wear the VR goggles and participate in the class activities. Their survey would just be thrown out, and only a few kids in each class will be interviewed, so it wouldn't be like, oh, 27 kids got interviewed and I didn't, what's wrong with me? And in addition, the kids can have to give assent too. That will be a part of that day when they do their pre-survey. So if the kids say they don't want to participate, they can opt out as well. I mean, they have just as much right to, their parents shouldn't just be able to give permission on their behalf if they don't want to participate. So they have that opportunity as well.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Glendinning, are we going to be having the joint meeting with the city at the end of this month? Could that be added to our agenda?
It's the end of this month? I think it is the last one for September 30th. So we can do it at that point.
That'd be great. We, of course, welcome all of you, and if any of you want to put on the VR goggles and go back to Philadelphia 1787, you are welcome.
All right.
You'd be like me, the learning curve, I didn't even know how to turn them on. I need instruction from the very beginning level.
Jake, you can impress your mom if you did that one.
Yeah, that's true.
You would, buddy. All right, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Nelson. That was a good reminder. We can add it to that one and get it for a vote. And it'll be nice for the joint city council to hear about that as well, I think. President Sappenfield, that will conclude the superintendent reports for today.
All right, thank you. Moving on to action items. Any public comments on action items? None? All right. We will start with the authorization to initiate rezoning process for Earlywood property.
I'm going to kick this off, and I'm going to send it over to Mr. Young. As you know, we purchased a property recently. We have found out through Mr. Betts' work that it has been rezoned industrial, and so we are asking for it to be rezoned back, and so I'm going to send it to Mr. Young now to walk us through that process and to seek your approval.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting. Apparently, when Earlywood came into being some time ago, the real estate upon which the building was located was zoned institutional. That's the zoning classification for a school building, excuse me, or a governmental building. Sometime after that, I'm not sure when, for reasons that the City of Franklin Planning Department cannot fathom, that property was rezoned industrial. I've spoken with the city planner. She doesn't know why it happened, but she firmly believes it should revert back to institutional, which obviously must happen if you're going to go ahead with your pre-K project there. You can't build and operate a school building in an industrially zoned area. So, as far as I know, with the full support of Franklin Planning, we will file a petition to rezone the Earlywood property back to institutional. The petition must be filed no later than October 10th. There's filing deadlines each month, but I'd like to get this done sooner or later. Once the petition is filed, there's legal advertisements given, and it ultimately comes before the Franklin City Plan Commission for a hearing, a public hearing. The Franklin City Plan Commission is not the final decision maker, though. The Plan Commission simply makes a recommendation to the Franklin City Council. Again, we are hopeful that because Planning Department supports our efforts, that the Plan Commission will recommend to the City Council that the rezoning be permitted. The matter, and regardless of what the recommendation is, the matter then goes to the Franklin City Council. The Franklin City Council will introduce an ordinance amending the zone maps. You're really not changing the zoning as such. What you're doing is changing the zone maps, the big colored maps that say what's allowed in any particular area. So the resolution to amend the zone maps will be introduced to the Franklin City Council. The council will have a hearing on first reading. It will then be advertised. Final action then will come back to the Franklin City Council on January the 6th of of 2025. And if everything goes well, then on January 7th, the property will be zoned for an institutional use. We have not yet received the deed from Churchill and Antrim for the property that we bought in July. And that is an absolutely necessary component because we can't seek a rezoning for property that we're not the record owner of. So I've been in contact with Amy Matthews, asking her to produce for me either a recorded deed or a deed in recordable form, and I'll go ahead and record it. So the only thing that I can think of that would delay the filing of the petition from the October 10th date is some issue concerning getting record title to the real estate. But I would assume that's not a problem, so we'll just assume that we're going to get going on October 10th. It will be necessary for a school representative, possibly Dr. Clendending or Mr. Betts or both, to attend these various meetings with the City Council and the City Plan Commission. So that's what's happening there. So tonight, I would ask your permission to authorize me to file the petition to rezone the Earlywood property from industrial to institution.
Any questions or discussion? Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
First,
I'll second.
second, all those approved signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Interesting.
Very interesting.
First we own a park and now this.
Yes.
All right, this time I'm going to officially close our meeting and open a public hearing on the 2025 budget. You're open.
Public comment?
Oh, are there any public comments? Hearing none, it's all you.
Thank you. Is this on?
I don't think so.
Okay, I just wasn't talking loud enough. Okay, so you have before you the Form 9. Nothing on this has changed since our August budget workshop. It was publicized on Gateway as required, so. Okay, are we good now? Okay. So if there are no questions, comments, or suggested changes, we will move forward with formal adoption at the October 21st meeting.
Any action?
Anything? No?
Questions, comments? Need formal action?
Pardon?
Do we need formal action tonight from
No.
us? Okay. All right. Any other comments? Then we will close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to action item D, the resolution to adopt bus replacement plan.
Okay, also at the August meeting, I presented our bus replacement plan for '25. That has also been publicized both on our website and Gateway as required. For 2025, if you recall, we're planning to use $2.2 million of our maintenance bond proceeds to purchase 12 regular buses, 1 special needs, and 2 activity buses. We talked a little bit about the aging of some of our buses, so this fresh batch of newly built buses will definitely help with those repairs and maintenance. So I am asking the board for approval on our bus replacement plan resolution this evening.
Discussion or comments? And we can entertain motions.
Move to approve.
First,
A second.
second, all those approved signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, Tina.
Okay.
Next
Capital
up,
projects.
yeah, projects, you're up.
This is one we also presented in August. This is required that we submit a capital projects plan for those purchases that exceed $10,000. When we have bond proceeds to use, we typically use bond proceeds rather than operating funds to make large purchases like that. And that will be the case in 2025 as well, which is the reason there are no items presented on this plan. However, I still need the board's approval on the resolution for the capital projects plan.
All right, any comments or discussions? Entertain motions.
I'll move for approval.
First,
Second.
second, all those approved signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Next up would be item F, the 2024 maintenance bond issuance.
Want me to speak to that?
Please.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Tonight you have three action items before you. One is a resolution determining the need for the maintenance for the projects that will be paid for by the maintenance bond. The second item is approving the form of a lease. We'll talk about that in just a second. Third item is a resolution reapproving your building corporation. The law requires that if a school corporation is going to lease school facilities, and there will be a lease in this case, that the school board must first determine that there is a need for the project. I believe Mr. Betts has well covered the need for the project, although I guess maybe I'd like for Mr. Betts to step to the microphone and very, very, very briefly again explain to the school board the need for the various projects that will be paid for by the maintenance bond. And again, you gave a detailed presentation at the last meeting, so I think this can be more of a summary.
Yes, so the biggest things we're looking at with that, and without the presentation up there with the maintenance bond, are all those deferred maintenance things we've been looking at trying to do. Roofing projects, air conditioning, HVAC, boilers, anything that we need to do to go back and improve our building on some of the aging areas that we've brought forward through the presentations in the last few meetings when we talked about those. So that's the gist of what we're looking at. That is just basically bringing things back up to, I guess, more modern standards than some of our very, very old equipment that we have in our buildings.
Sure, and the scope of the project's not changed any since you gave the presentation? And the need still exists, as you explained it to the board before? Okay.
I would
If the board
also
has any
throw in
questions?
playgrounds and buses.
Say that again?
I would throw in playgrounds and buses to that.
Yep, playgrounds and buses are on there as well. Again, bringing those up to a little bit of more modern standard in our fleet and for our children who are playing on those as well.
So that in a nutshell is the need for the project. Again, that's what was explained at the last meeting. So, Mr. President, I would ask that you call for a vote on the resolution determining the need for the maintenance bond project.
All right, any comments or discussion?
Move to approve.
We have first,
Second.
second, all those approved signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
The second resolution you'll be considering is one approving the form of a lease. And it's the form of the lease only that you're approving. The important part, the lease rentals, and the impact on the tax rate, structure of the financing will be addressed at the October board meeting. So the form of the lease is more or less a general, if you will, commercial lease. It outlines the general obligations of the parties to the lease. The reason it's necessary to do this as a lease financing is because the school corporation cannot acquire sufficient funds under general obligation bonding in order to complete the project. General obligation bonds can only be issued in an amount not to exceed 2% of the district's assessed value, and that's taking into account all of the existing general obligation bonds that are out there. So the 2% debt limitation absolutely requires that this project be financed through the assistance of a building corporation. The way that works is the building corporation actually owns a piece of real estate. In this case, we're going to utilize Custer Baker because a lot of the work is going to be done at Custer Baker. We're going to utilize that as the security. The building corporation already owns Custer Baker because of a bond issue that they did in 2024, I think. Now, those bonds have been paid off, but the building corporation still owns the facility. So what will happen is the building corporation will actually issue the bonds. The building corporation will enter into a lease with the Franklin Community School Corporation to lease to the school corporation the Custer Baker facility. The lease rentals that the school corporation will pay the building corporation is equal to the debt service that the building corporation will have to pay on the bonds that it issues. I know this sounds a little convoluted, but this is the hand that the legislature has dealt us. This is the way it's been in public school financing for really as long as I've practiced law. This is a very customary and standard way of school corporations go about raising money for big projects that can't be raised through a general obligation financing. So again, what's in your packet, what you've seen is simply the form of a lease. The important part's going to come in October for your consideration, and that is the likely amount of the borrowing, the term of the lease, which is equivalent to the term of the bond issue. They're co-equivalent, and the amount of lease rentals and the impact on the tax rate. That's the important stuff. Tonight only, we're seeking approval, Mr. President, of a resolution approving the form of the lease.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion? I'll entertain motions then.
Move for approval.
First,
Second.
second, all those approved signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Okay. The last resolution is one that's required by the IRS. The building corporation, again, is lessor, is an Indiana not-for-profit corporation. IRS guidelines require that the members of the board of directors of the building corporation be approved by the board of directors of the school corporation so that the interest income on the bonds issued by the building corporation will enjoy tax-exempt status. That is, the interest income will not be subject to either state, federal, or local taxation. All of your bonds are tax-exempt bonds. This is simply consistent with what you've done in the past. And obviously, making the bonds tax-exempt gives the school corporation a real benefit because the interest rate on the bonds is much, much lower. So I would ask for a resolution approved, reapproving the building corporation.
All right. Any comments or discussion on that one? If not, we entertain motions.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
Second, all those approved signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Thank you, and we will revisit this at the October board meeting. Hopefully get final action on everything. The timetable envisions that bonds are going to be sold before November 26th. They have to be sold before December 1st, so DLGF can figure what the actual tax impact's going to be. Thanksgiving's coming late this year, so you can expect, if everything goes well, you can expect a bond sale sometime in early November with a closing sometime in early December. And at the closing, you will have the money to move forward with these projects. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Moving on, we have item G, signs of suicide.
As a reminder from last month, this is a curriculum for us to use with students in grades 6 through 12 about looking for signs of suicide in their peers. We do not currently have a board-approved curriculum. As a reminder, we do have a curriculum from the state of Indiana for us to train all of our staff. This has come up as a request from students who want to help their peers, and this is the curriculum that we have chosen to share with you. There have been no changes since the last meeting.
I'll move for approval.
First,
Second.
second, all those approved signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Last item, policy, second reading.
Thank you very much. I just want to highlight a couple of them. One is
176 unpaid meals. If you remember about 4 months ago, we talked about the unpaid meals. Mrs. Gross went through and met with the Director of Food Services and highlighted several things to look at. We brought them back, and after talking and conferring with Tina regarding the appropriate wording, a couple highlights. Significant lunch account means anything under, if you borrowed and you're a negative $10 in the hole, we're going to start communicating with parents. If you also recall, we are going to continue to share information, but if once you get below that significant lunch item, you're not going to be able to get a la carte food, because that's one of the things kids want to go eat. They want to go get their flavored waters or whatever they might have. We're going to stop that. The last one did say that we are going to move to some type of credit or have Mr. Young do it. We decided not to do that in terms of any collective agencies. We'll continue to reach out to parents, but we've had very benevolent community that's asked and helped in many ways to help with these funds. So we just believe at this time the best thing is just to continue to work with the parents, but also not take them to collection if their lunches are in arrears. So that's the one I wanted to highlight on that one as we move to approve. The remaining items regarding the policy readings did not change from our last reading.
All right, any questions or comments? Entertain motions.
Move for approval.
First?
Second.
Second, all those approved signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Through the action items, discussion items.
And this will be very brief on discussion. We have 2 guidelines that we're bringing before you. One is a form with regard to registration of a service animal through the CCH&A policy. And the other one, I met with Mr. Betts and Mr. Murray to go over routing guidelines that we would have in place. And so as you move to hear about routing, next board meeting, these are the guidelines that we'll be using to ensure that we have the safest, best available routes to our community and our schools.
All right, thank you. Any public comments on discussion items? All right. Any board administrative comments?
We have a few administrative comments. Mr. Betts.
All right, wanted to give you guys an update real quick on our Earlywood property and where we are with the work being done there. We met last week with the contractor for the demolition of the building, which is Casey Bertram. Met on site with them last Wednesday, September 4th. One of the biggest things is just talking about that timeline and what all needs to be done. We're going to be working on getting the shutoffs for all the utilities. We're going to work on scheduling that this week. Some may take up to a month to get done. So we say we're starting that scheduling of the demolition, but that demolition may not start for quite a while because we've got to work with those companies to get that scheduled so all of those utilities will be done. Casey Bertram's, the contractor, sent out a group last week on Friday to do an asbestos inspection of the building for the demolition as well, a little more intense than your normal inspection, poking holes in walls, lifting up some flooring, making sure when they tear it down that it is safe and asbestos-free or it is abated to make sure it's taken care of. We did discuss the timeline depending on when those shutoffs are completed, looking at starting that demolition in October, hopefully early to mid-October, working through November, maybe early December, again, depending on that, setting that timeline up once we get everything shut down and ready to be worked on. One of the bonuses of, I guess, tearing down a building, you get to help others out. Our local fire department is going to use it once we get everything done to do some smoke drills inside. They're going to use the building. They have a machine that puts off smoke like it would be in a fire. They'll be able to navigate the building and do some training and work with that from the time those utilities are shut off until we start the tear down. So we'll be able to help them out, and we've been working with them during this process as well. Thought you were pulling that up for something there, Roger.
Well, I was going to, after you're done, I was going to add something.
Okay, I just got a little bit left. I'm done with that part. I was going to talk about our neighbors next. You want to go ahead?
Oh, yeah, real quick. That kind of leads into why it's necessary to do the rezoning. It's not necessary to do the rezoning in order to demo the building. However, once the building's demoed, the real estate loses its status as a non-conforming use. In other words, if a school building were to remain there, that would be considered a legal non-conforming use under industrial zoning. It was legal when it was built, so it could continue. Once you tear it down, you lose the legal non-conforming use status. You're back to a bare piece of ground to which the current zoning then applies. So that's an explanation as to why we just can't continue using it as an educational facility. You could if you're going to utilize the existing building. But the zoning issue will in no way affect your ability to move forward with the demo.
Correct. Yep, and the city of Franklin's been very upfront with us on that as well.
Yeah,
As we've gone through this process, so they've been very good to work with.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Nope,
So
great point.
us not having the deed, does that cause any problems with demoing something that we don't have the deed on?
It would be nice to own the property before we tear it, but I have no control over that. You know, I've corresponded with Ms. Matthews. We had a closing in July. They have their money. I sent her an email. The reason it came about is when we started working on the rezoning, the first thing I did was go to the recorder's office and look for the deed. There's nothing there. So the answer is yes. We need the deed for the property. I'm assuming it'll be forthcoming as a matter of course. I cannot tell you why it hasn't been done. But,
I would say I have faith in Roger to get the deed part done. I'm just shutting utilities off until they bring the dozers and the sledgehammers in. I'll check with Roger first before
well,
we do anything.
I would not let this issue in any way affect your timetable or plans moving forward.
Correct. Yep, you and I have spoken on that.
Good question.
All right. The other thing I wanted to bring you guys up to speed with, we do have some neighbors to the west of us that have bought that plot on the corner of 31 and Earlywood Drive up to Sloan Drive. It's a gas station and convenience store called Wawa. We have had really good discussions with them so far. One of the things the city of Franklin has asked for us to do is to create a shared drive in there so that we don't have two entrances, one into theirs and one into our property, that are very tight together, which is what it would have been if we didn't work together. They were really worried that would cause people turning into each other, coming out. They basically would have been almost touching each other within a few feet, and people trying to go left and right out of a very tight spot together. So we are working with them on what that entrance looks like, and with the city's blessing on that as well. We're working on sharing plans with them on what it will look like, so we'll continue that relationship. One of the things they are doing on the property as well is they are creating a private road that will connect Sloan Drive to the north with Earlywood Drive to the south. So basically on their property line going all the way between those two. So we've had discussions on that. They at first were going to make it a 25-foot road. We talked about expanding it to 28 feet so that buses would have, if they need to get through there, would have access to it as well. 25-foot road's not quite up to code for that, so the 28-foot road would get us there. So we're in discussions on that as well, in case a bus would go down there. But we are trying to keep them in the know with what we're doing as well as they are with us.
Do you know if the Wawa will have access on 31?
Yes.
They will. So that'll probably
It looks like from the designs that they've shown us, there will be a one-way to the, they're not going to use the entire property from what it looks like from Earlywood to Sloan Drive. It looks like about halfway between theirs will stop, and it's kind of angled, and they'll have a one-way drive coming into the north of that building. That will be an access road that will cut over to that private drive. And then there'll be an access off of Earlywood as well.
So in the future, one of the things we're going to have to consider is the easement. If you recall, we had the easement here south of this building, and there was a lot of questions about that with regard to how they were going to do that. In Friday notes, you probably looked, Mr. Betts did hyperlink the Friday notes to give you a quick overview of what that would look like. So at some point in time, we will have to have the conversation about that easement and how we want Mr. Betts and Mr. Young to proceed with that.
Thank you very much.
I would also like to talk a little bit about the collective bargaining schedule. It's not set in stone, but what we're looking at is, no? Okay. All right, I'll start all over. Collective bargaining negotiations officially start September 15th. We've had some informal discussions, but that is the start of the formal process. So in working with FCTA on a schedule, we're looking at October 1st and October 4th for the FCS and FCTA meetings. So hopefully Trustee Sappenfield and Lamb will join us for those meetings. If that goes okay, we will schedule the tentative agreement approval or hearing with the board on October 10th before fall break. And then the teachers would have their ratification meetings October 21st through the 24th, whenever they set those. And then we would also need a special school board ratification meeting on October 30th. So full board would be October 10th and 30th. And then trustees Sappenfield and Lamb, if you would like to join us for those meetings, would be the 1st and the 4th. So I sent some tentative invites last week, but they wanted to include their ISTA representative, so that changed a little bit. So if you have any conflicts on those days, please let me know. Otherwise, we will get that schedule formalized and out to everyone.
And that also segue into calendar. We're supposed to be at CBIS on the last Friday of the month, which is the 27th. And if we could briefly at the end of that meeting have an executive session just to kind of review all of the plans for collective bargaining. That probably would take maybe a half hour. I don't think it would take a lot longer than that. I think as we move forward. So it'll be on the 27th, we would have a brief conversation. And you're not going to be there for that, though, right? But we will be able to just talk about the previews of what we're ahead. Also, we do have on the 30th, the joint city council meeting. We're going to meet, Mrs. Campbell, we're meeting at City Hall this time, so we'll be there for that, and then we'll have that approval for at least the CBIS. We'll also talk about the Earlywood preschool center as well for them, and then probably the last thing will be the SRO program. We just received word recently that it was cut. The grant that we received, Ms. Gross and Mr. Betts received information this past week that we did lose about $19,000 from that grant. And then what does that mean for them? So we'll talk about that on the 30th with them.
What
so those
time?
We will have that meeting at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Yeah. So 7:30, we'll have 7:15 to 7:40 with the CBI staff for brunch. And then we'll have highlights of the school. And then immediately after, probably about 8:30, we'll have the executive session to 9 o'clock. Okay? That's all I have.
All right, I think we are officially adjourned. Thank you very much.